Hello, my name is Micaiah. Welcome to Hamlet Development Log number 10. We are working on a game for Haven Studios. It's available on Steam. You can leave a comment in the video. We also want to talk a quick second about advertisements. We feel that advertisements are kind of taking over the internet a little too much. Every time you watch an ad, you probably even have to watch an ad to see this video. So it's just the kind of the problems with some of the sort of things. So we realize that this whole sort of channel and some of the ideas is sort of to link back to our Steam page, but we also thought, hey, it would be interesting to see some of the development. Game design's more about talking about cool ideas, so we're going to try to limit some of this after this video in this series as well. Although we will, showcase some of the. We still have the teaser image, or the trailer image, or whatever you want to call it, for the final shot here, because it sort of links back to talking about Hamlet, and it's a nice picture to look at and see the differences as time goes on. So we're still talking about some Discord and some other stuff, so I think we're just really growing and trying to figure these things out. We're going through kind of a big growing pain right now, so it's kind of nice that we're kind of small and on our sort of the own, but we're building up. So let's see, we're talking about this status report soon. We still kind of are on this 0.8 on the live, or 0.08 on the live branch, and then we have the 0.10 on the beta branch. So we are almost eight builds behind the beta branch, or ahead of the beta branch, I guess, in this case. We started the log 9 on April 5th, despite what it said about April 31st. It was kind of the Sunday before, and here we are on the 13th. So it's been kind of a shorter work week. We realized that we weren't going to do a lot of things between now and then. We're thinking about playing some Anno 1800 or taking a break this weekend. I know it seems strange, but we also have a couple other things we could be working on, some combat and stuff we'll be talking about. So we're going to just see this kind of experiment also to see how this video turns out and how we feel about getting this out early. So Sundays, this next couple weeks, or this Sunday, and then next Wednesday is kind of or next Friday, I guess, is a big deal for us. So we're trying to put a little bit extra work ahead. So it'll probably be even shorter than before. So anyways, we are, so we're talking about some Steam, talking about some of the advertisements. We hope that people appreciate less advertisements. I know it's kind of a key. Like people say subscribe, it's like you kind of have to let people know. I assume that if you kind of are watching a YouTube video, you know how liking, I don't personally like liking, but you know how subscribing does help, because I need to get over 1,000 subs on my gaming and programming channel. And anyway, so I have this interesting topic of calling, for today we're talking about this designing forever. It's a really interesting topic from GDC 2019. We're catching up on some of those videos. We have some node world progress we'd like to show, and we've got an experiment, lots of experiments going on, and then we have the goal of shipping still. So designing path of exile to be played forever. Chris Wilson, I hope I'm getting this right, is the co-creator of the New Zealand studio that created Path of Exile. He had this excellent talk on designing path to be played forever. We like we were kind of dragged in by this played forever. We do feel like we would like to be able to play our game forever, so we thought that would be a great topic. And then we sort of were following what they were doing. They're actually amazing. On my discussion on Steam, I talked about that they are the world. I think they're the world leader in content creation for game design. They have an amazing content pipeline. They are sticking to it. They are actually true to form, and it's really amazing. And they have really great ideas. And World of Warcraft has been, we know we need to get content more, and it's like it's still taking them 2 years to do 2 patches, and it's just like, that's insane. Anyway, so there's some key differences. Hope I got all these spelled right. They're working on a post-release path cycle, so they have they spent I think they said 5 years. So we are on year 1. So hopefully we're actually not making a MMO sort of online game with transactions there. So we're hoping to get away from a lot of that development as our first game. So anyway, so that's one of the key differences, that they work on a post-release. They're working on a content cycles, which is kind of more of their talking about so they have some great slides in that show, which I probably shouldn't share. But one of them was talking about the fact that they have this short patch cycle. It's for 13 weeks, but they work on sort of a less, something more attainable for the first quarter of the month, and then they work on this larger patch cycle that's sort of within the same 13 weeks, and then they work on a shorter and a larger. So, and then the other thing too is we're working on this pre-release development. They're doing this post-release. We're working on pre-release development. I do sort of like some of the things that they were talking about though, and sort of like one of the things I've been thinking about a lot lately is they were talking about for me what I do is I have just tons of different ideas that I've been working on, and and I instead of forcing myself to work on the node database, which I probably should have, seeing how we're 3 or 4 weeks into this, but instead of forcing myself to work on that, I'll then go work on combat or economy or other things we'll be talking about today. Which is, I think it's good in the pre-release cycle when you're developing these things. I have all these pipelines. I have art, and everything needs to be worked on. And as a indie studio with only, they had 5 people. Well, I could have 5 different pipelines, but instead, I have to work on everything. As a small studio, you have to, sort of do a lot more hats. Working on the YouTube, working on the Steam store, and doing everything I can to sort of encourage the game to be better. So as things become, and the other thing too, a couple other points too, he not to counterproduct what he was saying, but he was like, well, we only work on one thing. But then he also has dev teams that are working, they have the background dev teams that are working on the act cycles, and they have a background dev team working on art. I'm not sure, he might have been talking about that they are working on their main goal of that patch cycle, but then he also was talking about any other time art has, because a lot of times art will have downtime once you develop the art, and then it takes a while to put it in the game, that he'll create content, which I thought is really awesome, because we have so many art things and so many ideas that we're sort of thinking about in terms of art. And so anyway, so he does sort of, Path of Exile Grinding Gear Games does have multiple pipelines. I think they're supporting, throughout the year they're building content, art content, I would say, and then as it needs, and I think that's a really great idea. Is like you have the core content team building these things out. I think everybody does that. You have the core content building these things out, and then as they well, I'm looking at that release and seeing if it's anyways, we'll not worry about that. English is not my strong suit. Anyway, so they'll have that core content, core team working on the art and storyline and the levels for the acts, or what they're called in grinding gears, and then that will feed into the content team. So we don't have a lot of that in place. So it was a really interesting talk about sort of organizing and how to think about things, and kind of designing a game that's played forever. And I think that's a pretty good idea. I'm not sure, we'll have to look at some of those. He had 5 pillars, I think, or 5 or 6 pillars. A couple of those we don't need because we're not an online game. Although I'm thinking about the long term of this game and how to kind of make it, enjoyable. It's sort of going to kind of work out to be a single player sort of RPG experience with some roguelike elements, I think, is sort of the goal. And then we'll have to, and then I have also a sort of a limited town building. And anyway, so that's kind of, outside of the scope of this sort of devlog. But so, yeah, so it's amazing talk. And there's also another one by Tarn, I think we talked about in the game design. So moving on. So yeah, I should have talked about this first. Yeah, so this whole devlog should be the very first. A lot of this is just in development, and it's coming when it's ready. So, and we missed the 10 there. Oh, and I meant to link to something. Okay, my bad. Anyway, so we're talking about the node world progress. We have a little bit of we're working on this new experiment. We started about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I want to say. We realized that we needed to make a pretty big change in how we're displaying the world. For the overworld, where you just run around the world, we've had that working forever, and we also had where you can go into the dungeons, but we sort of retooled and redid it, and maybe now we're started going back to that similar concept, but we felt like, hey, that needed some work, and then so we started moving this over to the game engine, which is sort of because it's kind of like a branch. We needed a branch of the game engine or something. That actually probably would have been much more helpful. But anyways, and then from there, maybe we should do that. We've been thinking about going to a private GitHub for our game engine. Anyways, and then having a branch from there. But it's not what we did. But so anyway, so then we're debating. This is kind of the final step here. How do we get to the game engine to the Hamlet? We have this separate project called Hamlet, which has all the core, files and stuff. And it's a lot. I think we might. I think this is kind of where we're heavily leaning towards of doing that. Is just dumping. Everything into dumping the core files that we need into the Hamlet, and then getting that to work, and then we'll have to decide if we can do a branch of the game engine or something. Might be we'll have an experimental branch, and then we'll have a live branch or something with GitHub. That actually might be a pretty good idea, and something I need to work on. But as it's with any of these cool things and stuff, it's like, do I delay the already delayed update to kind of improve what we're working on? So yeah, so let's do the video. We actually did another different experiment with this video. We actually released it on our YouTube channel. We put some really cool sound in it, and just released it so you can actually watch this video. It's called the Full World Generation Test. You can sort of see, let's get right into it. So the game loads, and it loads in. This is kind of on the node world experience. You don't see the trees and the resources. We were talking about that last time, I think, where we fixed that resource bug, and that was partly it, where this branch pulled out those resources. And anyway, so then we have these. We still have the oceans, or the ocean, sea and sand, and right into our grass tile. This is just basically roads in that zone that we're creating. And then you can see in this dungeon, we've been testing with this for a while. This is running with the physics enabled characters, which it's one of the major problems that we're having right now. When the physics are we're actually kind of thinking about going away from physics. Anyway, so you can actually go through, and you can step through, and then once you get to this below threshold, this gray box, these gray tiles are the dungeon tiles. They're kind of regenerated tiles. And then we also have this other stair experiment we've been throwing off here. This is kind of one of the, it doesn't fit with the dungeon, it doesn't interact with it sort of wipes out these tiles, and we need to sort of come up with some way to sort of, have a smoother transaction. And then we realize that we're gonna, maybe that's one of the next things we're gonna work on is start putting in some camera. We actually thought of maybe an interesting way to try to do that with camera, because this is not good on the camera to, and that's been a big complaint for a while. So, and also you see where I also fall off, and that's kind of that idea that you can also see there. It's like let's see if I can go back 10 seconds. You can sort of see, like, I guess right here, it's hard to see, but there's a lip of about 0.1, which is our tiles. These are kind of stair tiles that, and then it's sort of, but it matches up pretty good. I think we actually, yeah, we do fall through. That's something we need to think about, is like, because like the actual stair, wraps around and ends here, but then it needs to know that it needs to go one more over. If it's not going up to, and these stairs don't know about they probably should know, and then you actually kind of have to walk over here. So, and yeah, so that's kind of the idea of this. The water doesn't work and a lot of this stuff, but here we just kind of showcase this again, that we're on the clips through there, and we're actually going to read it, and we also talk about showcase that, oh yeah, it's clipping through the here we're actually trying to showcase the fact that back up just a tad. Here, let me right here. The gray tiles is sort of the level that we're at, and these are the stairs. You can sort of barely see that. You can actually go down further. It should actually load up the level down below, but it doesn't. And it's sort of trying to showcase that the overworld is now gone. That doesn't include the house and the dungeon, which are kind of one of the next. And this is kind of this gray block here. Dark gray block is a height experiment, trying to figure out what the what the best experience. I think we might actually go with looks like 5 tiles. These are kind of like Minecraft tiles, so this is 3 Minecraft tiles, and if we go up to 5, that actually would be good. And we think 5 is a good sort of pulling back and tile height. We were kind of going with 3, which you can sort of, the dungeon's 3, because we like the drop off from here. We think that's a good drop off, and this is kind of our node chunk world, but it's it's the zone. And I think, well, it might need to be a little bit bigger, but some of the performance is sort of low. Anyway, so we're just trying to showcase here that we are not displaying the overworld. It's disappearing, and I think we run the same experiment again. Oh, yep, we actually, that's one big problem about, because it doesn't recognize that it needed to load. That's one of the things of how to load in this overworld, and then recognize where you're at, that you're on this level, and then how to, we tried to load in the previous level, but it became too much. So, but here we're just kind of showcasing that the overworld is loaded, but the dungeon level isn't loaded. And it's just, they're actually going to, the whole game is going to be loaded into memory, I think is the goal. And then what you're actually seeing is how it's going to be cold, so it's not running as heavily. So we're just kind of showcasing. This is actually a really interesting thing with these stairs, is that every other stair has to be rotated 90 degrees, partly because, and we're still kind of figuring out how to do that. And it's partly because when you start at a certain height and wrap around at that height, it doesn't work out at different heights, but if we rotate it 90 degrees, it works out this so they line up on the stairs. So, and that's one of the next major problems we need to work on, is how to sort of put in these node height data into a world that only wants to, load in this sort of top chunk at a time. And these are sort of, interspaced throughout that node height of, the 1x1 node height, which is the 1x1 node. It's 1x1x1 is the node height. Maybe we'll talk about that next in the game design, because it's been a pretty hairy topic to discuss. But it's sort of like the Minecraft level, where you can think of like they spatialize their world out to a 1x1x1 chunk, and then they have all these other worlds. And we might be getting a little too heavy into that. And we're sort of getting away from that idea a little bit now, in terms of where the things can be. But we don't have the graphics power to display kind of what we want, and parse. Right now we're parsing 600, 400 and some odd nodes, and we really want to parse in. If it's 3 high, we want, it's like, and that's sort of, it's just it. It's like let's say it's 16 by 16, which is really small. Oops, sorry. Never do math on camera, kids. 16 by 16 is 256. So if we parse in, times, let's see, 5 times 0.1. 5 times 0.1. No, how would we have to do that? It's oh, it's 50. Yeah, it's 200. It's what's that? 216. 16 times 16 is, oh no, come on. 16 times 16 is 256, and we times it times 50. It's over 12,000. It's almost 13,000 nodes. Is what our goal would be. Given that, and that's even a small world, the chunk. You can see these are, I think these are 33 by 33 is sort of the number we came up with. Anyway, so that's just kind of just a way to showcase the fact that we are building the lower world, and that we're trying to build the overworld, and that sort of would limit. We're just building the limit of the display, and maybe we need to have a more. This is sort of per node basis. Maybe we need to have a sort of box collider or something. Actually, might be a different way to do it. I don't know. We'll have to see how that works. If an object, and if an object collides, with. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting idea. We'll have to relook at that. We looked at various things. That's also hasn't been proven. It's proven to be quick, but it hasn't proven to be very performant. So we'll have to see how we can get that. And then we also kind of have this, switching over to 2019. Is that going to be better? So. That's another fun topic we've been working on for a little bit now. So so we're on the point 13. We started all this. It was March. No, it was March March something, February. It's been a month or two now. So so now we're sort of loading into this 0.17. We're actually up to the 0.8 of the engine. Is kind of what this is trying to signify now. Just get, we are making progress. And we talked about over here some of the zone loader is actually what's trying to load in. The zone is that 33 by 33, which is 33. I think is the camera angle that we're sort of going with. I guess I don't have. Anyways, I don't have that ready. But the camera of what we're going for at a certain angle, 33 tiles is or nodes out, 33 units out, or 33 nodes is what we're calling them. But anyways, 33 nodes out is the visible distance that you can't see beyond that. So even though we are simulating the world beyond that, we're trying to limit what we can show in the world. And eventually, hopefully, when all this gets away, we can get away with displaying the Minecraft world. And they do a lot of trickery things that we are not going to be able to do. Maybe we'll have to do it eventually, but we're just trying to get away from this idea and work with this idea of nodes and how much we can display. And it just makes it easier and fun to work with. And then as we get into ECS or some more complicated thing, I think we have a couple ideas with that, so we'll have to see how that goes. But that's next year or something. Anyways, so then we worked on this project node database, which is like this entire experimental thing with the zone loader. We have the zone loader working in the Hamlet. But the problem is you can't interact. There's no physics system. These really cool walking down the stairs here. This sort of walking down this is all physics based. Not the running into the wall, but it's sort of physics based, which is great. And then walking up the stairs as well is physics based. And we're trying to debating whether or not we could sort of get away with that, but we want the unit to be able to walk up and down without physics. So we're going to have to figure out, and before we hit the bug, yay! So we'll have to figure out, excuse me, I don't know if I'm bumping the mic, we'll have to figure that out. So anyways, we're still kind of getting to this idea that we're going to have to ship this quite soon to feel like we're sort of making some, the world can see the progress. But the goal is to get it to the, just kind of looking at the head. The goal is to get it to the stated goal has always been to get it. We don't want to ship something that drops it down to version, 0.13. We don't want to eliminate 4 updates because we come up with this really cool new way to display all the nodes and load it in quicker. We don't want to take all that away. So we have to implement the design of this, which is not the final design. But we have to implement the design of that into the engine and then in the game, and then we can ship. And then once that's in the state of 0.17, where you can pick up the axe, go down, chop trees, and then actually interact with that in a RTS in the campaign or the sandbox mode, which we're actually looking at changing all of that around here for various reasons. But if we can interact with that or get it to a somewhat better. In the new we have this new idea for a new sandbox. It's sort of a sandbox is sort of the idea that you're in the RTS game, the gameplay. And so sandbox now, it might mean the fact that you're in this test world that's sort of not the world. We definitely and that's part of talking about, maybe this might be a better topic for this, is when we talk about the combat and the economy, we want to put in a test world that we have, one enemy and one NPC and one crafting station, and have a lot of the stuff, and then have all the inventory and everything working in a sort of that. That's why this world we have right here. What's a really good example of right here? Because this is a really nice test world where it's like you get the idea that you have C. We'll have the crate and the barrel for crafting components, and maybe the logs and the trees and the stones and stuff like that in this sort of chunk area. It's kind of like meant to be a small island that you can have it, and that will be the sandbox. And then you can go down into maybe one level of the dungeon, which would be another great way to experiment with that. But we don't want to do that in chunk based. We want to do that in what's around the character. for a future. So that's kind of why it's taken a little bit longer, because we want to get this all and this all procedural as well. So that's kind of the goal, to get all that in place, which is, we're almost there. But then from there, we're also, we talked about in the design, talked about the game design, we talked about the state managers. We have these 3 different ideas for the economy and how it works with the AI and what they do and how they interact with the world. And then the other thing too, we talked a little bit, we've been talking about a long time ago that combat was one of those things, but we also realized that now it's going to be a little bit more in the forefront, because we realize that combat will change how the world is interacting and what the world is doing. We think it's going to fit in nicely, but we kind of want to get that sort of that last major piece in place, because that's just it. You know, the economy, the AI, the resources, the crafting, everything else is there. It's just combat has been one of the last pieces we've been trying to put off, because we realize we're not going to be able to put out an amazing intuitive combat system that we want. We're going to have to put out some sort of not Dragon Warrior, but more like a Zelda combat. You know, it's like, it's going to be kind of not the Windwalker or the brand new, really amazing open world RPG combat. We're going to have more of the original Legend of Zelda combat, where you have a sword and you swing at a character and he could block and various things like that. And then if he's blocking, he takes less damage. And we'll probably get in. I think we're going to look at. We have some ideas for this, and we'll also maybe put in some archery. So we'll have 2 arch types of characters, I think. Sort of the knight and the archer are going to be the 2 main characters. And then spells are not going to be in the game. I mean, it's sort of, we should sort of, it might be an interesting thing to talk about, sort of where we're deciding to go with the game, and and that, and sort of what's going to not be included. Energy will be included, sort of technology, some of these, a lot of different ideas. But anyways, so we'll have to see, as that sort of comes together and it becomes a lot more interesting and exciting, we'll have a little bit more to show. But it's going to take a long time to get all that into place. But it's nice thing about this is just talking about where we're going with this, and I think that's sort of like when it's like you're getting to know the game, and you're getting to know sort of the path it's taking, and it's like, oh man, it's a roguelike game it looks kind of cool, and then it's like, oh, it's not going to have magic, it's not going to do this, and it's like you start to get to know what the game's going to be about, and then it's like, then you decide, well, this is kind of not the game for me, or that's really cool, or I can live without magic, and I can do some of these other things, and we might slip in some of the teleportation and various things that we feel like the game has to have, but we'll sort of encompass this into different aspects of technology and science instead of magic, which we don't think that this is the type of game. So that's kind of where this core screenshot comes from, is this idea of, this really gives you this idea. You have a character, resources, tools, buildings to interact with, and crafting. These are meant to be crafting stations, or resource gathering areas, or stuff like that. Anyway, so that's kind of where we're at, and I think we are, so we're sort of really, we're making a lot of good progress. We definitely feel like, maybe we're going to have to cut a few things. The point 17 didn't have the dungeons, so we wouldn't be going backwards in that respects, but we would still have this sort of the dungeon element, and then we need to redesign the entire dungeon element, and there's some different ideas about that, but we might... we'll have to redesign it from scratch, but we want to basically procedurally generate the objects in the dungeon and not just put them in as a prefab. Although we could do that, I think if we generated as object or as individual prefabs, I think it would be a lot more cleaner to sort of have these different types of dungeon entrances and different types of interactions with the world. So anyways, that's should be a pretty good discussion. Let's see, we're up to our good old 30 minutes, woohoo! So hopefully you guys are enjoying, guys and gals are enjoying the design discussions and development of this. We think it's pretty awesome. We're actually, we made a mistake. We should call out that we made a mistake. We're not sure why, but someone made a comment quite a few videos ago, and then we went back, and when someone else made a comment, and we're messing around with stuff, and we're like, why is this person not we can't see their comment? And then we have comments turned on. So I have no idea why certain topics were being, or where certain conversations were being flagged. You can turn off. There's a flag for turn off comments that the person has to review all comments, and I think it's great for some channels, but for us, we're like, no, we do definitely want the comment. It was a comment a while ago on one of our design videos, our random design video. Actually, it was quite a while ago, even before we came up to the game design playlist topic about the audio quality. And we definitely understand about the audio quality. It's one of the things we want to pick up as a piece of technology that will allow us to have higher audio quality for voice acting and various things that we can sort of want to accomplish in the game. Minimal voice acting, I should say, my voice. So, and then hopefully we'll get some others in there, and various things. But that would actually increase the audio quality of the game and increase the audio quality of the channel. And it's hard to. We are it's a no budget game here. We should probably go for more. We're talking about doing a little bit of Patreon or something, but we feel kind of one of the things we feel like, hey, if you want to support the game, buy the game, and that's all we want. We're asking for people. Patreon feels like, hey, give us $1 a month, which is maybe people would be willing to do that. I don't know. But and that's sort of it too. We want to kind of build up this development channel as well, just because as we talked about at the end of the Steam discussion, there is our game development is the life that we want to live, and really we eat, sleep, drink, and every sort of topic and things, and everything from MMOs to these large concepts. We just really enjoy the game design as a challenge and as and how to meet these challenges, how to make crafting in an MMO is one of our most really exciting things that we've been working on lately, and sort of personal design ideas of how to make crafting in MMO exciting. And so anyway, maybe we'll look at that further, but we don't want to step on the really great toes of Sharp Accent and many other great development channels that are sort of, Sharp Accent's more of a programming channel. It's like really great and in depth, and he's really got his Soul-like series is massive. We love the Colony Sim, of course, because it sort of fits in with what we're working on, but it's sort of a great way to learn, which is always something in programming and development. You always have to be constantly learning. That's why GDC is great, because they're constantly sharing really cool topics and what they've learned and how they've gone with it. So anyways, that should be a good enough development log. So thanks very much. Let me know how the new different discussion works out. We might get back to actually working on the weekends and pushing these out till Sunday to hopefully have a little bit more accomplished. I imagine that we'll probably sometimes we'll put out a video like this, and then by the time it goes live, we'll fixed and put a lot of these together, and they're like, oh man, we just would have waited. It's like oftentimes what happened with the game design is I pushed out the game design, and then I spent a little bit more time and fixed up the last section there about where the future of the game, the state manager was going. I got it to work, and I'm like, oh man, I wish I could have shown that off. But anyways, as such, thanks very much. You have a great one. Thanks for checking out the Hamlet game development log. You take care.